Hey everyone, it's Michael Phair from BIT here. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Tech Leaders. On this episode we are joined with Jem Anderton. Jem has got over 2 decades of industry experience. He currently serves as Chief Architect for Student Loans Company, a not-for-profit government-owned organisation, serving over 8 million customers with a loan book of 160 billion. He's a key member of the technology group leadership team at SLC, and he currently leads a team of 25 architects. As always, in part 1 we'll go through his career walkthrough. Part 2, surprisingly, the theme is going to be on architecture. And part 3 we'll ask him some personal questions. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Tech Leaders. Today we're joined by Jem Anderton. How are you doing, Jem? You well?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you, Michael?
Yes, no, awesome.
Sure.
Very good. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously, Jem, you've got 2 decades of industry experience. The last being focused on obviously architecture and driving organisations towards strategic goals. And you're currently Chief Architect for Student Loans Company.
That's right.
Yeah, a not-for-profit, which I think in terms of student financing, as 8 million customers, a loan book of 160 billion, pretty big.
Yeah. The big organisation, big team. I mean, you're right. I mean, those numbers there will have grown since we released them as well. Obviously, every academic year we bring more customers in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an organisation operating at a pretty significant scale. Same sort of size we like to say as a medium-sized retail bank. So yeah,
lots of nuances and stuff in there. I mean, and throughout your career, I mean, kind of starting from the very beginning, really, I can see you went to University of Edinburgh. Did you do a degree first and then can move into that? Or what was your kind of setup? How did you go to university?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So my degree was a philosophy degree. So I did a philosophy degree at the University of Edinburgh. And I obviously have a really smart Alicant's interview answer to, how that degree helped me in my current career, logic and problem solving and thinking differently and stuff. I've got that one well rehearsed, but of course you can see that it's not necessarily directly linked to what I've ended up doing in my career. I mean, it's an interesting thing I've been reflecting on quite a bit recently, actually, Michael. So I know you guys at BIT are involved in career ready mentoring, aren't you? Something you do. So I'm just starting this year as a career ready mentor.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I've not met my young person yet, but that's something I'm looking forward to doing. So it's really important to me to both to kind of help, just to help out, and that's the thing that I get a buzz out of doing in my career. But one of the reflections I've had in my life is that, the advice I got at school was terrible. Next to non-existent. Yeah. And I mean, I was a good pupil. I did really well at school and I went to a good school. So, in that sense, I had every opportunity. However, being a very naive young man, had absolutely no idea about the world of work, no real sense of where I wanted to be or how to get there. The careers advice, I had one visit to the careers advisor at school and they put me into their primitive algorithm and suggested locksmith, which, although in fairness, I do have to repair a bathroom lock this weekend. So maybe they were perhaps even more farsighted than I.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Putting that out, locksmith.
Locksmith. Can't even think. I mean, it's that I was probably I might have been being a truculent teen at that point as well, and I might not have answered the questions honestly. So who knows? But I mean, more relevantly, there was a lot of. I think the only real advice I got at that point was, being the first person from my family to go to university, of the first generation. Go to university, get a degree, the world's your oyster, people will be knocking on your door, you do anything you want. And of course, as you know, that's not necessarily the case. And I'm sure it's not the case now. So anyway, not really knowing what I wanted to do, other than usual schoolboy fantasies, I did a degree in philosophy. And my immediate career after that, I worked in retail. So I worked in record retail, music retail. So that's my kind of big passion outside of what is for music, alongside playing in bands and running clubs and DJing and all that kind of good stuff that you do when you're young. I for a few years was manager of Bop record chain that I'm sure you and lots of your listeners be familiar with. So I run a couple of those shops for a few years. And then I thought, hang on a minute. This maybe isn't, I mean, to be honest, it's the most fun I've ever had at work. Apologies if present or recent employers are listening. But so yeah, I sort of got to a point in my kind of mid to late 20s where, obviously a little bit, probably not seeing necessarily the personal growth that I kind of wanted, because I've always been someone who's enjoyed learning, doing different things. That's kind of part of what I've taken into my, my kind of current roles. So the sort of the growth wasn't really there. Technology was something, so this was the 90s, so technology was beginning to become more accessible and more interesting to, guys like me that didn't necessarily have, the background. Because again, it wasn't something that we told anything about at school. I mean, I had my Acorn Electron and, I'd done a bit of basic programming and kind of good stuff, but, copying games out of magazines, all that, that good stuff. But, it wasn't something that really felt particularly relevant, I guess, probably to me as a teenager. But you can imagine, the 90s technology was becoming more accessible, interesting. That was, I still remember my first foray onto the internet.
What was that like?
Slow.
It
was a bit of a magical mystery tour. One of my best friends, twin brothers, their father was a computer science professor at law, and they would talk about, we could go and have a look at this thing on the internet. Like, you have to explain all of this to me. Took a trip up to Area Watt one night, and we presented this machine, and then we didn't really know what to do with it. So I think, and of course it's sort of pre-search engine. So my friend who'd done a bit of this already had, a big list that he'd taken with him of, like,
pretty clean.
Here's all these URLs, which is, places where people are, kind of writing up, band set lists and this kind of stuff. So it was interesting, but
because it wasn't like Google and search engines and things like that. It's not like
it was it was that you had to, people had. I mean, again, some of your older listeners remember people used to have like bookmark pages. That was what you needed to know. Who's got a good bookmark page? That's how you know to write it. That's
it.
Precursor to being. To being a YouTube, used to, if you had a really good bookmark page, people could remember, go look at Michael's bookmarks and you'd have like a great list. Right, here's the 100 really great websites, whatever the topic was. That's how you found your fame and fortune. So anyway, so all that was happening. It was kind of starting to become more interested in tech, and probably as you do at that age, starting to feel a little bit, actually, am I too old for that, to change the career or whatever? But I knew a couple of people that had made similar career changes. Again, end of the 90s, .com boom, there were lots of jobs. So I did a little bit of studying, did some Microsoft exams, and I was really lucky to get, a couple of jobs in quick succession in internet startups, doing support roles. My very first job in tech was, that kind of night shift help desk for an ISP that looked after sort of actually what was, they did EDI really was the main thing, but it kind of become an ISP for schools. So I mean, again,
I can imagine that was an experience. Doing the night shift.
I mean, it's quite good. I mean, it was dead quiet actually. It was one of those kind of funny things that it was it was kind of a contractual, has to be available, whatever it was, 24/7. That's quite 24/7. But yes, to be honest, just used to sit there from 6 till 12, picking a lot of time to study and to explore tech and listen to John Peel. And so it was kind of, it was okay. But I mean, the thing about that, without sounding too pompous about it, it did give me a bit of a grounding in the sense of, I didn't come into tech via a grad scheme, at, one of the big four consultancies or something like that, genuinely, a really star on the service desk,
Like self-taught as well, like studying exams, and then trying to get yourself in the door. So
yeah, and I'm still trying to catch up, but as we all are. But yeah, so kind of did that for a couple of years. Singularly managed to miss out on making any big money out of any of the startups I worked for. I was there always just a little bit too late. I was always the guy that didn't have any shares, and literally I would sometimes be working again, doing pretty, kind of crummy sort of, support tech type jobs, and I would next to guys that were millionaires.
Really?
Who were still doing it because they loved it, of course.
Did you understand that at the time when you were, I suppose, younger and kind of seeing what was going on, and this is crazy,
I mean, in terms of the, I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of, in terms of the bubble. I mean, I had a really interesting and kind of sobering experience, and probably one of these actually, made me at least kind of, with my own money, a little bit more risk averse. One of the companies that I worked for had been bought by another medium-sized, I guess, kind of ISP.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's where a lot of the guys have made a lot of money, because at the time it was really small, and silly money was paid. And it had grown, and how did it? I can't quite remember the sequence of events. Had they now been bought by Tiscali, and what was that yet to happen? Anyway, either them or Tiscali had bought them, who are now, I think, ended up being part of Talk, I think, was going to YPO.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a kind of an opportunity to buy shares for everybody who had joined up to the day before I joined.
Oh, no way.
Oh, wow, you say no way. And, the company was doing stuff. They were giving people loans to buy shares. I mean, I have no idea how ethical that is, right? They were giving people loans to buy shares. People were taking out loans because all of their experience had been, kind of make a fast buck.
Mm-hmm.
People were getting their, parents were sinking big cash in and stuff like that. So then the day of the IPO, everybody kind of went upstairs to the boardroom, kind of, watch the tracker, see what happened, big excitement. Muggins here is like, it's all right, I'll stay and look after the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No interest in this, it's just going to be awful. And then, about half an hour later, people started coming down the stairs. I just could still see the looks on people's faces of like devastation, because this was just as the bubble burst, I think. It was Alta Vista that had a really bad IPO, like a week or so before. And confidence had just gone in the market.
Just went.
People, just regular people like you and I, lost a lot of money. Say some of that money they'd been loaned by the company. It was just,
That's it.
It was really quite a sobering. I mean, again,
that's hard. Imagine you went to your parents and stuff as well, or grandparents, and said, "This is you, and kind of get some money from you," kind of thing. And
carpet bagging was the term that was being used. But so that's kind of gave me a little bit of perspective.
Yeah. What's someone else's dream perception isn't maybe always reality. Yeah.
So anyway, so I did that for a bit, and then, I mean, I guess I went through a bit of a succession of jobs and kind of worked my way up to IT manager at a small consultancy. And then really I guess the big thing that really accelerated my career was I spent 10 years at Heineken.
Good company. Nice beer.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great. Well, I mean, it's pretty great working for a brewery, to be honest. In some respects, Michael, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But, so it was Scottish Newcastle when I joined, acquired by Heineken a couple of years after that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of fun. Got a lot of opportunity there, both, to move up through the ranks, do different things. I was effectively head of architecture UK when I left there. Got to work on some, really fun global projects, did a bit of travel.
Yeah.
Made lots of, really good contacts with good friends. So that was a really great experience. And that's I guess the point at which my career took the pivot sort of into architecture.
Mm-hmm.
I would just, and again, one of those, sort of fortunate moments in your career where somebody, kind of sees something in you and creates an opportunity for you, and you're not necessarily sure, but kind of pushes you into it, and you make what you can of it. I'd always been, increasingly become kind of more interested in, the strategic side of what technology is about, how it supports the organization, how you make good technology choices, and you stop bad technology choices, how you manage risk, what, positive technology choices can do to your budget and all of that sort of good stuff. But yeah, I hadn't really, I guess if I'm honest, because there was no architecture function in Heineken, and I, worked in smaller organizations, never really kind of come across enterprise architecture as a thing. I hadn't realized as a job. I'd kind of been doing solution architecture as a job, but not really realizing it.
Yeah. And just for anyone listening that's maybe earlier on in their career, solution architecture, more modular, like looking at a kind of set of projects, enterprise right across strategy, 3 to 5 years kind of thing, or
pretty much. Enterprise architecture, you're right, is the longer term view. It's the bit that does the linkage between the business strategy and I guess ultimately the execution. So good enterprise architecture is able to look at a strategy that says things like we're going after growth, or efficiency is the most important thing, or we need to be really more customer centric, whatever it is. All the flavors of strategy, of course. It's able to sort of take that and look at the environment, both internally, but importantly externally, and disruptors and trends and all of that stuff. The build and map, of course, from where you are today to where you need to get to. And then that, of course, starts to turn into those projects and programs that then solution architects can get in. And I think they're, really key, an important part of project and program success.
It sounds easy to say in those couple of sentences, but I can imagine that's massive, amount of work there when you're talking about strategy over that kind of term. So
yeah, I mean it is, but that's what motivates me, and one of the the real joys of my job, is that you get to work with, because that's a hard job, and I wouldn't kind of be putting myself forward as the world's best architect, but the real joy of my job and what I like doing is you get to work with really smart people.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of challenge that turns really smart people on. They gravitate towards it. So then you get to work with really smart people and you get to manage really smart people, which I find a lot of fun.
No, completely, totally. I mean, when you mentioned there moving at that kind of leadership role within Heineken over those 10 years, did you have those aspirations at Heineken when you started? Was it the mentor, the person that was kind of helping coach you? What was the kind of sliding door moment for that, really?
Yeah, I've always been, I'd be lying if I was saying I wasn't ambitious. Yeah, particularly when I was younger. At some points I had to check myself and say, would you stop just thinking about the next job and try to be good at the one you're doing? I think, so a couple of things that I really like to do. So one is I like being, involved in strategy. I like, setting direction, understanding how, technology can help support business goals. And, so that's something that I was always, again, you can do at levels, of course, but it's something that is more of a leadership responsibility. I really like, as I said, I really like running teams, managing teams. I really like helping people to be successful. That's, again, the other thing that motivates me. Of course, others will judge my success or otherwise at that, but it's definitely a thing that I always try hard to do, and I enjoy doing. So that was always really important. And then the kind of the negative side, I know, well, not the negative side, I always feel the more agency you have at work, the happier you are. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
remember, when some that kind of bit that I talked about, when I kind of, I've been managing shops, running, decent sized teams, responsibility for the P&L for that shop, doing all the buying, blah, 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 blah. I've got a reasonably responsible role to going back to sitting on a help desk. And, I'd always, I'd always like see people in meeting rooms going, God, I could be in a meeting room right now. I could be making decisions.
Yeah.
Do better than them. And that really nagged me a bit. I need to know, I'm not a sort of a lone wolf in that respect. Number one, is it? But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
An individual contributor. I like to be across stuff and be running teams and kind of making decisions. It has to be said, Michael.
Yeah.
So it was always an aspiration. And again, I was just fortunate on a couple of occasions that people put their trust in me, created opportunities for me. And again, maybe, not always the opportunities that I would have thought. There's a thing at Heineken that, I said, I was there 10 years. I think it's a really long time to be in one organization. And I was only able to do that because every couple of years, I was able to kind of switch things up, trying things within a different role, do a bit more globally, all of that kind of good stuff. And when I ended up, that was my first proper leadership, head of department role. And it was a lot of fun.
No, good. And as going through the kind of the motions there for everyone, I mean, I certainly get it. Still, the imposter syndrome, you're learning like your leadership skills, management, that wee voice in your head. What are you doing? Is that apparent, throughout the start? And
what, imposter syndrome? Yeah. That's, well, I shouldn't admit to this publicly, should I? Because that's what
I think most people do in the podcast.
I say this stuff on imposter syndrome every day. Yeah.
I mean, it comes and goes. It's just to help, I suppose, people that are listening to kind of, as they go into those leadership roles and move through the ranks and things, there's always that wee niggle there, regardless of, I think, how much experience you get,
I mean, and I think, it's obviously, it's important, so a couple of things I would say, I would say in that respect, one is always remember that if people have put you in a role, they've done it for a reason and they've done it because they've got trust in you. They, can see in you, the attributes and the qualities that, they believe will make you successful in that role. And, no one is the full package on day one. I mean, it seems kind of obvious to say it, but it's true. And to a certain extent, I think we all grow when we're tested. I mean, I know, I'm a big proponent of, letting internal teams grow and where it's possible, trying to promote growth internally and, allow people to step up into new roles. I kind of find in architects, it can actually be quite hard to do that. And I think, again, a good talent pipeline isn't still still is probably not something I've cracked yet, which is obviously kind of good news for you in the day job, Michael.
That's a challenging market, certainly.
But I do think it's really important to give people internal opportunities. And so many times where I've been involved in interviews and interview panels or just talking with colleagues who are kind of wavering, there's always that natural tendency, isn't it? Hire a guy who's doing the job already. Hire someone who's already, a manager of this or a manager of that. Person X hasn't got the experience. And I just think until you actually, so I guess what I'm trying to say to people younger in their career, until you're actually in that role, you don't know what you're capable of. And so neither does anybody else, but you've just got to do it because that's how you learn. And that's how that's how you grow. So the imposter syndrome, it's always there, but you've just got to have that faith in yourself. Sorry, I've kind of waffled.
No, you've not at all. It's good advice what you're saying, and it's very difficult. People are always kind of looking for the next thing. I'm definitely like that, where you're kind of wanting more or doing more and taking more responsibility, and you actually forget to kind of look at your feet and take stock of what you don't know what you know kind of thing, or where you actually are just now. So Yeah. No. Solid advice.
I would definitely, I would always encourage people, just put yourself in situations where you don't know what you're capable of, because that's when you'll grow.
Yeah.
When you find skills that you didn't know you had.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. So Heineken 10 years.
Yeah.
You then, hopefully, was a recruiter. I don't know what it mean, fortunately, but you went to the ACCA.
Different organisation, I'm afraid, Michael. But, so after 10 years at Heineken, I wasn't necessarily had itchy feet at that point, but I got approached about the role at ACCA, and it sounded really interesting, and it was. I mean, one of the things I think is, really important about architecture is that, some organizations need it more than others. Primarily, without getting too technical, architecture, to me at heart is about really, how you build good information systems. Right? Some organizations that matters. So my current organization, let's say it's a bank effectively. ACCA really mattered because it's a global organization, 800,000 customers globally, and between sort of students and members, it's huge. And they really are globally, across 170 odd countries. So you've got to deliver digital services to them. It's a really, really interesting challenge. So many different, with a small team, things to think about, how you, deliver services, one extreme, the two big markets, the UK and China, and they couldn't be two different markets culturally, the way that people use technology. So, you'll be aware of just kind of how mobile the Chinese market is, how much there's a concentration on particular social media platforms. Then other challenges, cybersecurity laws are very different in China. And of course, you'll be aware of, the kind of the influence of the government on that stuff. It's a big firewall between China and here that makes it really difficult to deliver services. And if you've got a relatively small organization trying to centralize, that provides you challenges. Some really good, hard kind of problems to get stuck into. And, an organization that was going through a big transformation. So it's really good, and a good team, good team. So it's really good time to get into that organization and do something really different. And I got some to do, again, one of the things I'm always looking for, in an organization is what am I going to get to do here that's like a bit different, that's sort of interesting. So that, genuine kind of global reach was one. But I got to do some fun stuff, like create a whole sort of reference architecture and technology strategy for organizations like ACCA, because ACCA is about the public good. So not ACCA, but all of the different organizations across Africa. It was kind of sponsored by the Global Federation for Accountants. So I kind of got to do that. And I got a trip to conference in Uganda, representing all the CEOs of these different organizations. And saw a lot of wild stuff while I was there. And that's the sort of thing that, you would only get to do in that organization. That both the fun side of it, but also the kind of the link to public good. So great job. I really enjoyed it.
Totally. I mean, it's so interesting. You're saying about digital services in different countries, like the data laws, like GDPR here. What is it in the States, or like, what is it in China? Even the websites, different languages, the UX, because, different people in different countries use things differently and interact differently. And imagine it throws up all these different things being global, like you say.
And again, they're fun problems because they're technology problems in one sense, but they're also kind of business operating model questions as well. How as a relatively small, but global organization, do you deliver good, consistent service right across the world? So really, really interesting show.
Was an interesting challenge in there with a somewhat global pandemic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot about and then there was a pandemic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How could I forget about that? Yeah, in interesting times. I mean, again, I'm sure all of your, your guests that
Mhm.
you asked this question to will, of course, because it is absolutely true, and I feel very proud to have been part of this.
Mhm.
Work out the tale about, how, technologists went from being, well, whatever their status was in the organization to being, absolute heroes in the space of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In terms of, mobilizing remote working. Yeah. I mean, we did a brilliant job, I think, at ACCA. And again, it was really good because a lot of the groundwork that we'd actually been laying for, I guess, ultimately more, sort of modern, flexible, you know, kind of ways of working. I mean, one of my colleagues always used to say, work is something you do, not a place you go. So that's something he was like saying in 2019. And, so we've been doing a lot of the groundwork for this stuff. And we were able to turn stuff on really quickly. I mean, we did have, the big business challenge for us was, if you can imagine a lot of our exams, although, they're not delivered digitally because one in the profession are called high stakes exams. They matter in terms of, what professional status as an accountant. A lot of those were delivered, big quarterly tranches in, exam halls. So, in the UK, you might turn up to the Hydro in Glasgow or the Excel in London, with several hundred other people. In an exam hall to do an exam on, a set day, a set time, all this good stuff. And if you think it's a major driver of revenue, all of a sudden,
that's not happening.
Pandemic, we see the problem. So, technology teams as a whole were kind of throwing the challenge to, can we do this? Can we do this online? Can we make this safe for people to do it at home, in a way that allows an element of proctoring, which is the kind of the technical term for, the sort of the checking people's credentials, doing invigilation, making sure, that there's no cheating, all that good stuff. And this has been something that, kind of business strategy teams have talked about, in the long term, it's an emerging trend, it might happen, but we don't quite know what it will mean for the value of exams, whether it's going to work technically and, all this kind of good stuff. And I mean, the technical teams, turned that around in a couple of months. And I mean, it was really quite, one of those interesting, as we've all come out of the pandemic, it was all, of course, reflected on was our ability to, kind of do the impossible and, really hard things really quickly.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that thing you're talking about in 5 years' time, do that now.
And that thing you weren't even sure was going to be possible in 5 years. Doing that. And I guess loads of organizations, I mean, we've all seen it, haven't we? Even just the simple thing that, you always know you're going to get a table now when you go to the pub if you want, because you can book it beforehand.
It's crazy, wasn't it? What world we lived in. So Harvard, head of architecture, or chief architect at SLC now.
Yeah.
Huge organisation, can't really go down, needs to be given out loads of grants. The complexity of architecture there, what's that like?
Yeah, so as I was saying in the intro, Student Loans Company really is, a medium-sized bank, albeit one that has a very specific purpose, which is to enable opportunity through the supply of student finance. So really interesting organization. Nice to kind of see the impact on what you do on society. Again, interesting, we've got a lot of the challenges that a lot of government departments, have in terms of, trying to create the best experience we can, while obviously trying to manage operational risk whilst, dealing with, I guess, what a lot of organizations that were sort of born in the sort of 80s or 90s are dealing with, which is, legacy technology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of the job, is trying to plot a course from, where we are today, something that, will be more efficient, more effective, obviously, kind of take risk out of the environment.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine very challenging, yeah. I mean, the size and scale and applications and obviously tenure of the company and not technical debt, but, things that have been there for a long time. And as you're saying, plotting that course, I can imagine it's very interesting, also very challenging. But
yeah. And I mean, again, looking at, architecture from, a different lens, I sometimes think, all you're really trying to do, because you sort of don't, as an architect, you sort of don't really, you don't own anything. You don't, you don't run system X, Y, or Z. You don't ultimately kind of make decisions really about what the business does. But you do guide and direct and support decision makers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of my great bugbears is I never have any budget. I never have any money to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your job is to guide and support decision makers, and again, so one of the things I'm always looking for in organizations, what's decision making like this? And of course, in Loans Company, it's because it's interesting because we've got really clear purpose and mandate. So there's a core business, what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
Universal services, student finance. We've got course influence from different areas. It's a government policy will ask us to do specific things, and as you can imagine, those things are things that once we're committed to do, we're committed to do.
Yeah,
we've got an operational business there that is obviously wants to make itself more efficient and more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Different dynamics around things like the what you could do as a government organization to attract talent.
Mm-hmm.
An organization, again, as I said, it's a bank, so it's very tech heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got constraints, I guess, because we're a government organization about what we can do to bring talent in. You have to work a bit harder to do that. So to me, it's interesting to try and kind of bring all of that together.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's the purpose of the role, is that synthesis of all of these different drivers and factors that you help sort of bring together to make a coherent strategy. So you can be, operationally secure. You can grow for the future, build different tech. You can get the right skills, and because you've got things like the right tools for the job and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like, I mean, that stakeholder management piece of different priorities, like you're saying, different areas kind of coming in and influencing and on different things. So I can imagine, it's definitely an interesting one. To ask you two questions then on part one before we go to part two is, what would you say is your proudest achievement or biggest challenge throughout your career?
Easy to look back and overanalyze the decisions you make.
Mm-hmm.
If you kind of trust yourself at the time, I think you should kind of trust yourself in hindsight that you did the right thing. Mm-hmm. To me, the only real answer to the why did you make that decision is because that's the decision I made at the time, and it doesn't, I don't tend to dwell on things like that and think, right, that was a big mistake, and think of some things I wish hadn't happened and hadn't panned out the way that they did, but I kind of learned from them all,
Mm-hmm. That's a good mindset. Good way to look at it.
That's my proudest achievement. Yeah, it's quite a lot of stuff that I feel proud of. You know what? At the risk of sounding corny, I'm going to go back to something that actually isn't from my tech career, but was when I was working in retail, and whether it's a proud moment or just, I think probably as much something that I learned from and made me really kind of consider other people and kind of where they're at. I remember I hired one of the guys that worked for me in the shop. Was a young mother, and she had quite a good career in retail in London, and then had a period out of the workforce for X number of years, and applied for a job with me, gave her a job. She must have a really good CV. And I mean, she was great, kind of really good. I kind of really enjoyed, working with her. And, I'd sort of not given any of this a second thought, right? I just, someone I thought was good, and then she was good, and it was all good. And then I remember when I was leaving, she was really quite emotional about it. And I was like, gosh, wow. And I had a chat and she said, you can't underestimate the impact that you've had on me, my self-confidence, my career. I'd, wanted to come back to work. I was finding it really hard about the job. Like I'd not worked for 5 years, not my confidence, all that kind of good stuff. And I just sort of had no idea. So I'm kind of, one of my proudest moments is something that I was kind of unaware of at the time. But I felt it's that thing that, I think now always gives me a reminder. And again, others will judge how well I do with this. It's just, when you're trusted to look after a team, a team is people, and you have a responsibility to them, and you never know where they are, what's going on in their lives. I think now I'm definitely better at trying to find that out. Like I said, I was a bit oblivious at the time, but also you can really, really positive impact on people's lives. And quite often people are in really stressful, text like really stressful, hard situations. And generally, things you can have a positive impact on people's lives. And again, being honest, I've had some quite, as everyone does, some quite tough times in my personal life over the years. And the bosses that if I'm being honest, the bosses that I really remember and look up to and would work for again are those that have, helped me when I needed it.
Supported you.
That kindness and that support. So
who you were, who you are now, like these things obviously all have an impact, and now you're self-aware of it. So, it's definitely also helped you in, again, managing teams and leadership and helping people. It's not just about, instructing and delegating, it's about actually trying to get them to work together and, become an actual team. So welcome to part 2 with Jim Anderton, Chief Architect at Student Loans Company. So on this theme of architecture, how would you say the field of architecture has evolved, I suppose, over the years? And has there been any significant changes that you've kind of noticed or witnessed?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the fundamental shift is just more people. I think there's a discipline we could still do more on this. I think more people understand the value of enterprise architecture, I think, is one thing. I think as business leaders have become more digitally aware, I think they have come to understand more the complexity of delivering digital services. They've come to realize that they need people who can kind of understand how to kind of bring all that together in a coherent whole and do it safely. So I think that's something that's happened. I think more broadly, even probably before my time, I think, enterprise architecture was very focused on technology, kind of very focused on, managing risk, making sure that, we're staying on, the current version of, whatever technology it is we're using, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
I think more so, now I think there's, people are seeing other use cases like, how can I bring enterprise architects in to help me innovate, to help me grow. So I think, the breadth of applications of architecture is growing. And I think, the other interesting thing, which isn't necessarily about changes I've seen in the industry per se, but I think maybe I've become kind of more aware of is, that's something I try and do, is, rather than making architectural one size fits all approach, I think is a much more contextual awareness. So, different organizations need different things. Therefore, the services that your architecture offers, or that it operates, needs to be different. What do I mean by that? Well, even if I look at, my last 3 organizations, they're obviously all fundamentally different. One's a global brewery, runs a members organization, delivering digital services, people, doesn't have any physical products. And the last one is, a kind of public sector bank, like student finance. So clearly, on the face of it, they're different, but actually, their strategies are different and what they need are different. So, different things matter. So, at Heineken, because effectively it's a manufacturing organization at its heart, efficiency, is a really, really big thing, so trying to, sweat assets and all of that good stuff. ACCA, very much an organization going through a growth cycle, delivering digital services into more and more and more parts of the world and looking at innovative ways to do that and new services and help customers. Again, it's very customer centric in that respect. Student loans, again, different, so if you think about, we're offering a universal service on behalf of the government. So, things like risk are really important, stability of services, all of that kind of good stuff. So different, really kind of, they all have a bit of a mix of some of the others. Well, I mean, so student loans are also a very customer centric organization, of course, but we've got a different mix. And that really, to me, I think if you are going to be a good architect, you need to hold and deliver your services to fit the model, so again, it's not, so I think, so the 3 architecture teams I've had in those 3 different places have different mix of skills, doing different things. And I think that's becoming more of a normal model, and people not necessarily saying, right, I'm creating a technology organization, what do I need? I mean, okay, well, I'm going to need someone to do ops, and I'm going to need someone to do service, and I'm going to need someone to do projects, and I have an architecture team too. I think people are being much more thoughtful now about actually what is the architecture team I need, and, what's the size and scale, and what's the mix of skills, and all of that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's what I've observed. I don't know if that's
or
my growing awareness, but that's how I think things have changed.
That's a good overview of it, and again, saying the nuances in different organisations require different services from them.
Yeah.
So then, I suppose on that, what key skills and qualities do you think make a good, successful architect?
Okay. Great question. From personal qualities, it is a very analytical role. I think people forget that. It's about being able to solve really hard problems, but also to kind of bring clarity. A lot of what architects do, I think, in my career, I found is, there can be ambiguity, it's a really complicated problem. It's not really clear what the route through is. Sometimes that's driven by the complexity of the technology or, the situation. I was going to talk about dealing with China earlier. Or sometimes it's driven by, different stakeholder needs and demands that, don't necessarily easily reconcile themselves. So, first and foremost, being able to, analytically take those really hard problems and ultimately take them to a point where, they can be simplified. And of course, only simplified is at the point at which they still have, we've done simplified things so far. And present stakeholders with decisions and that they can make on those things. So that's really important. You've got to be able to work with people. You've got to be able to, not just manage stakeholders, but build really good, trusting relationships with colleagues. Because, sometimes you're having to help them with really difficult problems. Sometimes you're having to create cut through where, an organization might have set itself a course of action that's no longer appropriate. You've got to be trusted by people. So you've got to have good people skills. And again, those 2 things, the analytical skills and the people skills, don't always come in the right balance. That's just human nature, isn't it? One's a bit left side brain and one's a bit right side brain. Technical expertise, but to me, and I guess this is the fundamental thing about architecture, is it's too hard for one person, right? In most organizations, I think most organizations where it's worth having architects, it's just too hard and it's too much for one person. Team activity. So you've got to be able to collaborate with your colleagues within your team. Got to be able to do that. But from a technical skill perspective, to me, managing a team, you're trying to get a mix. So there's always got to be, every architect in my experience has a specialism, something they've got some real strong technical depth in, and, it might be in a couple of different areas. But yeah, the job of putting a team together is to try and balance all of those skills so that they're kind of complementary.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's those mix of things, the kind of the really deep analytical skills, good interpersonal skills, ability to work with people, and good solid technical skills at that.
And I suppose if they've got, say they're more technical than people, and you get people that are very analytical and maybe not within meetings of kind of contributing, but maybe just not as, quickly kind of firing things. Do you have a certain way that you try and kind of pull information out or get them to contribute more, or to kind of get them, well, they wouldn't participate? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like people that may have ideas aren't sharing them as regularly, or?
Yeah, I mean, again, so you're right. I mean, I can be quite reflective. Lots of architects, are reflectors. I mean, some of that's coaching, some of that's, just good meeting management. Some of it is understanding, what's going to get a good outcome, and, not, putting people under pressure to, deliver in an environment that's not kind of conducive. Some of it is, playing people on point as well.
Yeah.
You always know your guys who can go, run a really great meeting, manage a particular stakeholder, really light up a presentation. And then, your guys who are, maybe, like you say, a bit more analytical and, want to be a bit more in the background. But again, it's having the mix in the team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting them to work together, knowing how to play this. But also, most architects, because of the nature of it, you tend to be, one of the things we always kind of wrestle with a talent pipeline is, there don't tend to be any young architects. It does tend to be a more experience. And I mean, the good thing with that is that it often comes with a really good broad mix of experiences. People quite often have done lots of different things, so they're not fazed by presenting. They know how to manage stakeholders. They can, they get how kind of businesses work, but also they have a range of technical skills. So generally, managing a team of architects and managing a team of kind of seasoned professionals who also kind of get this stuff. Also, hopefully have a degree of self-awareness as well, to kind of know how to manage their own performance and preferences, and to get the outcome. That then also means, which again is one of the things about managing a team, isn't it, is also getting out of people's way and letting them do that in the way that works for them as well.
Kind of learning and breaking and stuff. I mean, you mentioned about people being, not young people being architecture, like kind of going through.
I wish they could have liked to bring more, but it's generally tends to be an experience.
Look, I mean, I kind of see, I suppose, if they're in infrastructure and they're doing first, second line support, server engineer, might go to cloud, then they might move into like kind of some architect role, but they've come from an infrastructure background, or they've been a developer, senior, principal. They're doing maybe like solutions design, then they move into architecture. So there's always quite long routes. Is that, I mean, I see it's kind of needed to get to that level, but do you think there's a quicker way that people can get into becoming an architect, or do you have to kind of go and, do the graft of kind of going through those roles?
Do the work. The work. The senior roles, I think you have to do the work. You have to have been around the block. I think you have to have the scars. I think you have to have, got that experience, been through, a few big transformation projects, been in and out of a few different environments, a few different types of tech. I think, managed, lots of different senior engagements. Now, I mean, something I've done in different roles, a big, to try and bring people in is, one of the emerging themes in, architecture is how architecture can drive innovation, which is kind of an interesting one because actually, a lot of the kind of the core tenets and approaches to innovation are actually quite, they're almost anti-parents. They're not quite how architects would like to operate. Well, we're going to bring in, another cloud-based, kind of CRM to do this innovation thing, and then it'll be hanging around, and then that's duplication and it's cost, and we don't like that. We get the data in and out, and all of this kind of stuff. It's they're very they're actually they don't sit well together in a traditional architecture model. But the only things I've done is kind of bring in some fresh talent, grads and things like that to really be a bit less shackled by some of, I guess, ultimately that kind of classic architecture thing to do different stuff. And then ultimately, hopefully give them a bit of insight into what the world of architecture is. So there are opportunities there, but, I think, I wish it wasn't thus, but, sometimes, you're having to sit down in front of the board, give them advice on, really significant, ultimately business decisions that they need to make. I think just like a lot of roles, that comes with the tenure.
Yeah, completely. What about technological change? We've also been playing about with ChatGPT.
I should have done a bit more of that to prep for my answers, actually.
No, you're all right. I mean, I suppose that it's like there's bots everywhere. I just have to type in so many times now until it says, "Do you want to speak to somebody real?" Yes. But, there's all these different things that kind of help customers, kind of streamline different workflows and things like that. And I can imagine with all the students and things that you guys are working with, I suppose it'll come part of that in the future we're looking at it now. But how hard is it to keep up with the change that's kind of going on in the industry?
Do you mean personally?
Yeah. There's so much.
Yeah, I mean, again, talk about imposter syndrome, isn't it? I mean, particularly with, with the explosion of Gen AI, people reasonably looking to you to give them guidance, and say, right, okay, well, we look to the technology leaders in the organization to, give us guidance. And of course, I mean, obviously the explosion of GPT and Gen AI, I mean, I think, is one of those, generational things, isn't it? That, we don't quite often get in this cycle where things are moving quite that fast. But it's kind of scary to only feel like you're at best one page ahead of everybody else in the manual. But yeah, again, it's just looking for opportunities to learn. In the current role, I'm really lucky, kind of part of a kind of a board and network of CTOs across governments. I've had an opportunity to see some of the other stuff that other departments are doing. It's reading, it's, playing a bit. Again, not had as much a chance to do that as I would like. It's trying to be disciplined as well to try and, kind of carve out the time. Listening to colleagues, what colleagues doing, what colleagues finding. It's like, I mean, it's part of the role. And again, good architects. This is one of the things I'm not as good at, I must admit, as I should be. Good architects. Again, it's probably another quality. I just good at picking stuff up quickly.
Yeah, they get it.
Yeah, they get it, and again, because a lot of that analytical skill is about being able to see models and spot patterns and, what's actually the same here and what's different. What I've done like this before, what are the risks? How can I apply that to this new thing?
Just thinking about, the risks and different applications. I can imagine there's a lot of applications in the organizations you've worked with in the past, and you want to make a change. Is it better? I don't know enough about this, but I'll try and say it. But you get systems that are all linked together, and you get modular, so you can change things out and switch it about. Is it very challenging when things are linked and you're trying to find out, right, if I touch this, what's going to be impacted down the line?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's that's a big part of the the job, and you talked again about the difference between enterprise architecture, solution architecture, but a really good solution architect will understand that stuff. So they'll understand the organizational data model. They understand, what does every system do? How are they linked together? They'll kind of understand business processes. So they'll know how data gets from A to B to C to D. They'll understand, your approach to integration and how things work. And they're able to bring all that together. I think, ultimately, the role of the architect is actually one of the tools you have to de-risk that type of approach, because of that breadth of understanding, kind of recognition of how things are hung together. Now, as you rightly say, in a kind of a, modern architecture, we're all, of course, trying to find ways to make things more modular, make things more loosely coupled, because, one of the goals ultimately is to give teams more autonomy.
Yeah.
So, one of the aspirations I think every organization has now is to create whatever they call them, product centric teams, teams that are aligned to particular customer journeys, or teams, but teams who are both empowered but also enabled through the technology to make changes by themselves without recourse to guys like me and my team, to be within that framework and say, right, okay, this is ours, we get it, and we can make change. And as long as we stick within this set of rules, the architecture running, whatever you want to call it, we know what we're doing. So that's kind of that's the aspiration, isn't it? But in the meantime, a lot of it still, the architect has a really key role in, I guess, de-risking change.
Yeah, not completely. And what about, I'll get two more questions, I'll ask that, sorry. What about security then? I mean, we see a lot of stuff now with startups and things like try to do secure by design and build it from the start. And it's obviously good to do that, but I can imagine more expensive and harder. And if you've got a product to get to market quickly, it takes more time. With big organizations, they're continually looking at security and there's new threats. And, I can imagine it's how important is security when looking at architecture?
Yeah, I mean, really important. Every organization will have a different risk posture and approach to security depending on what they do. But, to me, I've always had, close relationships with security teams.
Yeah.
I think architecture teams and security teams are, really close bedfellows. Both. One of our key aims is to minimize risk for the organization. And, as you rightly say, lots of the things that you can do to do that come by doing things like secure by design, planning for security rather than, kind of bolting it on afterwards. And again, actually, funnily enough, you're one of the teams that has to kind of, deal with bad design choices, so involved at the start, setting stuff up, and then you tend to be involved in the end, either from a security perspective, continuing to manage it securely, or from an architecture perspective, then left with the next change is coming down the line. Did the last one do what they said they were going to do? This will be easy. If they didn't, so it's always a kind of quite a strong alliance you can have with your CISO, your head of security to things generally better and take risk out.
Yeah, can imagine it's challenging given again how quickly things move or are moving as well.
Yeah, and again, even that can be one of those tension questions. I wouldn't want to be a CISO, it has to be said, because it's never nice to feel like you're always saying no. And I'm sure all the CISOs listening to this will say that's not what it's out to do, but I know lots of them find themselves in that position, and that doesn't look like fun.
I think it's a ton of investment, isn't it? I think I seen a video was on TikTok or Instagram or something with the CEOs like, why we spent all this money on security, we're never getting anything happening, and then they're like, good. That's the reason you're spending all the money, Yeah. Final question on part 2 then. So for people listening and interested in looking at a career in architecture, what advice would you give to them?
What advice? Yeah, I think be open. to, new experiences. There's loads of different routes to become an architect. I mean, I think there's basic stuff that you can do in terms of, honing your skills. As you mentioned before, loads of different routes through the structured technology route, through a software development thing. But you'll be open to new experiences. So, different types of, because it's a breadth of thing that matters. So different types of, projects, different types of technology, things that you might not commonly do as a techie, so looking for opportunities, is there a project going on to, redefine the department strategy? That might be interesting. You might learn something, can you, do something to pull more of your, your soft skills, so, can you get involved in a mentoring program or something like that? There's loads and loads of different things you can do just to build, as I said, those kind of key skills, your analytical skills, your, interpersonal skills, the breadth of experience, your exposure to strategy. I don't think one route. I think it's just always thinking, right, what can I do differently? And then the obvious thing is find yourself a mentor. So if you think architecture is something for me, how do I get there in my current organization? Find yourself a mentor. Speak to your chief architect, the head of architecture or solution architecture that you say, pitch up. You can just kind of get involved, can I actually really see what it is you guys do all day? And then read, learn, all of that sort of good stuff that you'd expect.
Yeah, I mean, solid advice. If you don't know, you don't know. So you can just go and ask an architect, show them what is it you actually do. I'm quite interested, and that can lead to, anything really, can't it?
Yeah,
show that interest. Awesome. So I've got 5 questions left on part 3. So what drives you, Jim?
What drives me? So I like learning. I like doing different things. I like, I'm not someone for the status quo. I do, as I said before, one of the great pleasures of my job is getting to work with and to lead a team of really smart people.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. But being able to help those people be successful, that's, I think the most important thing for me. I'm not, the world's greatest architect. Never have been, never will be. Never sell myself as that. But what I think I'm quite good at doing is, teasing out from architects and teams of architects what will help make them even better. And that's what I enjoy doing.
Well, good. Favorite tech? What would you pick?
Favorite tech? Of any tech, just like...
Favorite tech? Yeah.
Any tech. Yeah. Sadly, we're going to go for quite a lame answer and just kind of trust the iPhone, probably.
Cool. That's good.
Probably even the iPhone 4. That was a design classic.
Yeah.
I just kind of buy a lot into the kind of the simplicity of the iPhone.
Yeah, I definitely crack something with that, totally. How do you relax after?
I use it every day, so, I would be lying. It would feel like a cheat on it if I said that.
How do you relax after work?
Right. How do I relax after work? Well, I mean, the things I like doing, obviously family stuff, music, I'm a big music fan. So listening to music, attempting to play a bit of music, reading about music, going to gigs. Yeah. Films, movies, books, that sort of stuff.
Cool. And on books, do you have any recommendations that you'd like to share?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, from a tech one, I think we'll just do that. Your tech one. I mean, or kind of business perspective. I mean, the most interesting thing I've read recently is that's probably that from So Scary Smart by Mo Goda. I think everybody should read that. I mean, it's a really good, insightful view of, well, I mean, ultimately the clues that so the risks of AI, but also what we can do, I guess, as as a civilization, as humanity, as people, to help AI, emerges and kind of draws the parallel to kind of AI as a a young, kind of a young child, because ultimately kind of AI is the thing that learns. So how do we help teach AI to be a positive influence on humans, on the world, rather than a malign influence? Because it's all about the inputs, that we get the right inputs. It's a really, really interesting book, really easily written. I think, probably is the primer for people who don't know much about AI as well. I think it really helps just orientate you in terms of what it is, what it isn't. Throws up some really quite scary predictions about what could happen if, if we don't do the right thing. Has to be said, I sadly find his predictions quite compelling. But then, kind of offers a route that says, okay, fair enough, that there's still a chance to make this actually a good thing.
Don't do the Tron thing and help to make the perfect world.
But you need to teach them what the perfect world is, you see. Like a child, it's going to learn from, behaviors, things it sees, the things it experiences. So the challenge is giving is AI will only know what a perfect world is if we teach it what a perfect world is. So if we expose it, good. If we don't just use it, for instance, to generate advertising and clickbait in social media.
Yes.
If that's what we're using it, and that's what we're teaching it is good, and that's what humans want, then why would they not do more of that?
Yeah, no, totally. Like there's teams of people, like hundreds, thousands of them, actually trawling through the internet and cleaning it. So it can feed it data, because you can imagine if that thing, got into everything, it would,
I mean,
nasty things on there.
So it's good. It's quite a nice philosophical book. So I've been recommending that to everybody. I think it's
cool.
Good read.
Awesome. Final question: could your parents explain what you do?
No
idea. What do they think you do?
I think crawling around under desks, kind of connecting wires into stuff. I think, I did try and explain it again to my mum recently, but it's just very, 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 very divorced from her.
Like it was you'll ask you, like, can you come fix my motherboard, or can you work with computers?
I'm not really what I do, but we'll let your listeners decide.
No, awesome, Jim. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been good.
Well, that was Jem Anderton, Chief Architect at Student Loans Company. Thanks so much again, Jem, for your time. And as always, if you would like to suggest or recommend any guests that we reach out to have on the podcast, please do let me know via LinkedIn or via our website, www.be-it.co.uk. Thank you.